The unannounced visit to Zimbabwe by the President of the Republic of South Africa, that is Cyril Ramaphosa, which has backfired, in my view, for both sides. With this meeting for the side of Ramaphosa as well as also Emmerson Mnangagwa, remains unknown as to what was the motive of the President of South Africa visiting Zimbabwe. But individuals are speculating. There are numerous interpretations. Harare says it was a private meeting, while Pretoria says it was a working visit. So there are numerous interpretations to this. And Rutendo Matinyarare is of the view that Cyril Ramaphosa visited Zimbabwe to stop an imminent coup, and I'll be taking you through his presentation. We'll have to listen to his presentation in order to actually appreciate and analyze it. Greetings and welcome to your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. Let's listen to Rutendo Matinyarare.
The reason they cannot give... So many Zimbabweans and South Africans want to understand why the president of the most powerful country in Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, had to go on an unscheduled emergency working state visit in Zimbabwe over the weekend on a Sunday, May Day holiday long weekend without his dignitaries and was not received by the dignitaries of Zimbabwe. And the media of South Africa, together with the president of South Africa, cannot give a clear answer. And the reason they cannot give you a clear answer is because President Cyril Ramaphosa went to Zimbabwe to stop a coup. Because President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his so-called Guptas have created a crisis in Zimbabwe in trying to amend the constitution to prolong the stay in power of Emmerson Mnangagwa. And as such, a coup is about to happen, and President Ramaphosa had to try and stop that coup. So this is where you need to start paying attention, because this is where things start getting tricky. President Cyril Ramaphosa is briefed on a Saturday evening that a coup is about to take place in a fellow revolutionary country. And he decides that he has to go as early as possible to go and fix this problem without letting the world know, because he wants to bring African solutions to an African problem without Western or white interference. So this is the reason that he cannot really tell South Africans what is happening, and it's also the reason why he can't tell his GNU partners, the DA, what is going on, because he knows that the DA hates Zimbabwe and they'll be happy to know that there is a crisis. So he goes there to try and sort this thing out quietly. This thing is meant to be a secret. So in a normal state, with President Ramaphosa understanding the delicacy around this issue, he would brief only a few seasoned diplomatic government officials in his government, and they'll fly over to Zimbabwe in secrecy without letting the media know. On the Zimbabwean side, the Zimbabwean government would also have seasoned bureaucrats and seasoned government officials who are politically mature, understand diplomacy, geopolitics, and international relations. They then have a secret meeting in which the media and the public are not briefed. But things are not normal in Zimbabwe. The state has been captured, and those that have captured the state have attempted to create a parallel cabinet and parallel government that has no maturity and does not understand the rules of geopolitics and diplomacy. And these immature people, the Guptas or the business people around the President Mnangagwa, the people who have been assisting this president to change the constitution by beating up people, by burning the offices of the opposition, by violating human rights and arresting opponents to this constitutional change, decided that they were going to use President Cyril Ramaphosa to try and look like he's endorsing President Mnangagwa's attempt to change the constitution to prolong his stay in power. Because this parallel government does not have government expertise, it does not have experts in diplomacy, international relations, people who understand governance, and people who understand the geopolitics around them, they decided, or let's say they made a blunder to try and use the president of not only the most powerful country in Africa, but the country that upholds democracy, human rights, and constitutionalism to try and endorse their attempt to mutilate the Zimbabwean constitution and to violate the human rights of Zimbabweans to try and achieve their ends. This has forced the South African government to make a statement and to distance itself from this parallel government.
Agreed to retreat to President Mnangagwa's farm, where they would engage in a relaxed environment and outside of the constraints of presidential formality protocol. As the presidency, we've noted with concern the reports that have since surfaced following this visit by the president to Zimbabwe, identifying an individual who is a person of interest to our law enforcement, who was also present during the visit. President Ramaphosa had no prior knowledge of who would be present during the visit, nor was he familiar with the said individual. The president flew to Zimbabwe for a meeting with his counterpart and nothing else. The president will further encourage our law enforcement agencies to continue with pursuing the matters that are under investigation involving these individuals or individual, and to do so with no fear or any form of hesitation.
So here are the symphony of blunders that each and every leader that is in this picture, from current presidents to potential future presidents, undertook on Sunday. President Ramaphosa made the mistake of coming in good faith to Zimbabwe to try and stop a coup that could destabilize the entire region. But he came here without understanding the level of state capture and the level of rule and law breaking that is being undertaken by those that are trying to capture the state. The blunder that President Mnangagwa makes is he tries to kill two birds with one stone, or he tries to have his cake and eat it too with the coming of the most powerful president on the African continent, Cyril Ramaphosa, to Zimbabwe.
Okay, so that is...
tries to have Cyril Ramaphosa mediate or mitigate this potential coup or potential civil war that might break out in Zimbabwe. That is good. But while he's doing that, he also tried to get the most powerful president in Africa to endorse this parallel cabinet that he has created, which is not created in line with ZANU-PF Constitution, ZANU-PF Congress. And the whole reason he tried to do that is that he hopes that this will also endorse that parallel cabinet's attempt to manipulate and to mutilate the Zimbabwean constitution in order for him to stay in power longer, but also for him to pass the baton to a person from the parallel.
Okay, I think we have listened enough to Rutendo Matinyarare. Now, the point that he is deriving home is that President Cyril Ramaphosa, number one, let's look at his travel to Zimbabwe. When a president, as a sitting head of state, travel to another country, there are measures that should be undertaken, which should guarantee his security, and also there are measures which should be undertaken because not just an ordinary citizen, he's a head of state of another country. His government officials, they are acquainted with this, and also statements are made also in his respective country to address the citizens on the intended visit by the president, and the president should actually be welcomed following international protocols that are put in place. This was not done on the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. It was meant to be a private, a secret meeting. And why would he demand something secret, according to Rutendo Matinyarare? It's just because there were secretive, in fact, discussions that were going to be carried out of concerning the imminent threat that Emmerson Mnangagwa is currently sitting on. And remember, by the way, the South African president, as the head of the state, is also informed by the South African intelligence services. South Africa has secret services, just like Zimbabwe, and obviously the intelligence services of South Africa, they are across the African continent, just like also the intelligence of Zimbabwe is also in South Africa. They are aware of what is happening within the government of South Africa. So all these countries, they deploy intelligence systems. Now, this information is coming from Rutendo. It should not actually be sidelined. Why am I saying so? Because Rutendo is one individual who had close association with these ZANU-PF officials, not only ZANU-PF officials, but also men who are manning the state institutions. I remember at one point speaking that he met the Director General of the Central Intelligence Organization, which means he has established some connections also with some government departments, and as well as also some military officials. And what he is speaking about may be from an informed perspective or an informed perception that indeed there was a coup that was planned, in fact, and that is imminent. And Cyril Ramaphosa flew to Zimbabwe to try and prevent this, because this will happen to a revolutionary party, a sister party, and Mnangagwa happens to be his close allies, and they have benefited a lot during the tenure of Mnangagwa in terms of also his business expansion in Zimbabwe. You should understand that as much as ZANU-PF may be having also business interest in South Africa, equally so, South Africa is also benefiting something out of Zimbabwe. So if there is a political crisis, they are bound to lose as individuals who have also invested in that particular country. So what is being said by Rutendo Matinyarare is not just like anyone. He has been into ZANU-PF, he has been close to individuals such as Gudawashe Takure. You heard yesterday, I covered also part of the story where he was actually agreeing with what has been revealed by Knox Chivero, because he had part of the information that he was told why he had close relations with those who are currently at the moment holding levers of power in Zimbabwe, such as individuals like Gudawashe Takure, who is funding the ZANU-PF of Mnangagwa and equally benefiting also out of the government of Emmerson Mnangagwa. So he is of the opinion that and also, if you look, the reasons that he's advancing, look at this, caption this. We've got a sitting head of state. He visits a foreign country, and he wants that to be private. But who actually exposed Cyril Ramaphosa? It is ZANU-PF and also this Zwikananda government, because it was meant to be a private meeting. They wanted to spin a political goal over that private meeting of Cyril Ramaphosa, and most probably because information had been leaked about that private meeting, they wanted to control the public perception regarding the reasons why Cyril Ramaphosa was in Zimbabwe, so that it gives them a political advantage. But if there is anything, it has been a blunder for both Ramaphosa as well as also both Mnangagwa, and who all of them, they are at the receiving end. I think if that is the purpose why Ramaphosa went to Zimbabwe to do, he should be actually at the moment blaming himself even for taking the initiative. I think he didn't understand how deep corruption is in Zimbabwe, and also how the institutions how we don't have institutions that are independent in Zimbabwe, because and also the fact that what Rutendo has raised, that there is a parallel government that Mnangagwa is working with, because there was no Chiwenga, there were no ministers of ZANU-PF. It was Mnangagwa with Ramaphosa, as well as Zwikananda, Kudawashe Takwirei, your Wicknell Chivayos, your Tungwararas, your Owen Muta Ngube, all these people who are actually the kingpins of the 2030 term extension of Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. Chiwenga was not there, Senyato was not there, other key and prominent government officials, Opam Chinguri was not there. It was a den of the Zwikananda. And Zwikananda, obviously they know the truth, what exactly was discussed, but they tried to manipulate the situation to their advantage. Individuals like Wicknell Chivayo trying to give an impression that they control Cyril Ramaphosa. And this backfired for Wicknell Chivayo, because it means if investigations were actually stalling, this time around they are going to be done very, very fast. Because of that impression that he wanted to give to the Zimbabweans as well as to the South Africans. But in South Africa, they are independent institutions. Independent institutions began to ask very tough and hard questions. And analysts in South Africa, as well as media houses, formulating their own opinions regarding the secret visit of Cyril Ramaphosa, which potentially tainted his name. That is why we saw his government, because it respects the people, because it is answerable and accountable to the people, and taking into consideration that in South Africa we've got a government of national unity, and that government of national unity is governed in line with the Constitution of South Africa, and the Constitution of South Africa is a valued and revered political tool, unlike the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which is undermined by the current rule of Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. So, in simple terms, also the other question that I wanted to ask, did the visit then of Cyril Ramaphosa yield any fruits? In my view, it didn't yield any fruits, because at the end of the day, the visit was manipulated by Zwikanandas to circle their own political as well as business agendas. Instead of listening to Ramaphosa, trying to stop a potential coup, what did they do? They made Ramaphosa to be a campaign tool to the very same instruments that he was coming most probably to advise them to do away with it. This is history repeating itself. If we are to actually align ourselves with this line of thought. This was done to Robert Gabriel Mugabe when the coup was imminent. His South African intelligence peaked that he quickly rushed to Zimbabwe to go and speak with Robert Gabriel Mugabe that the military generals were not happy, and there was high likelihood that there will be coup carried against him. Robert Gabriel Mugabe played the same card with actually Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa and downplayed the efforts that were carried by the then actually former president Thabo Mbeki. Remember, by that time the person at the helm in South Africa was Jacob Zuma. Most probably Jacob Zuma had asked Thabo Mbeki to do that on his behalf, but Robert Gabriel Mugabe downplayed that. And in the few weeks and few days after that, there was a coup in November 2017. And we are seeing Mnangagwa almost falling into the same trap. How history is repeating itself, but this time around with different characters. So the line of thought of Rutendo Matinyarare, to a certain degree, I am buying into it, because how do you explain a scenario whereby President Cyril Ramaphosa, it was a public holiday, it was on a weekend, he was supposed to spend time with his family, most probably, and he uses that time to go to Zimbabwe just for business? He could have, if it was business, he could have made maybe a state visit, formal state visit, visited with ministers there, and then at a certain point called for a private meeting with Mnangagwa. But it seems something urgent propelled him to go to Zimbabwe. Hopefully that his efforts were going to result in some form of an intervention to prevent what is. And also, when he visited the intelligence, or special military intelligence, should have picked this up. That is why you saw generals cautioning, exposing, and sending strong messages to Cyril Ramaphosa. And also, if you listen to Knox Chivero's presentation seemed like someone who was giving the other side of the story of the parties that were not invited by Cyril Ramaphosa, which is the military. He was saying the side of the story of the military to Ramaphosa, and he respected him. Each and every time he spoke about him, he always used the word His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. This is the story. This is our side of the story. How relations actually broke between Mnangagwa and the current Vice President, the extent of corruption that has been carried out unabated by the regime of Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, the cartel networks, how ministries in Zimbabwe have been grounds for corruption, and the kickbacks that were paid to ministry officials, and how the companies that were supposed to belong to the military were actually taken whilst the military was watching. In fact, he was laying a ground for, in fact, his side of the story. And why would he do that? Because he understood that there was also a side of story of Mnangagwa and the Zwikanandas. That's why also the South African president could be heard saying, you should not be removed. If you are to be removed, it must be constitutionally done. And he is quoted saying, whatever is done, it should follow the constitution. This does not mean that he was against the coup. Also, he was cautioning that Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026, you may have been briefed that it goes against the constitution of Zimbabwe, the way Mnangagwa wants to do it. So, to some extent, I buy, as an individual who has little information on that, I buy the viewpoint of Rutendo Matinyarare. It makes sense more than any other actually views that have been paraded, and also considering who he is within ZANU-PF circles, he has actually maneuvered. He knows, he understands the characters, the dynamics. There is high probability he still has connections, he still has sources which actually feeds information to him. Thank you very much for watching us. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Okanqubo Mhlabane is signing out. Let me love and leave you. Let's meet on the other side of the live broadcast as I give you more.